worries. Are you good to get rolling on this?
Let's do it.
Rock and roll. All right, dude. Today we got Chris here, founder of Bitrograde. Let me pull back up our meeting here. Thanks for joining us, taking some time today, my friend.
Yeah.
Hopefully everything went well in our weekly meeting today. Everything looks cool. I'm really happy with what's going on there, but we've got some questions for you. Feel free to answer these as specific or non-specific as you like. If there's any of these in here that you don't feel like are a good approach to what we need to grab here, or it doesn't make sense, or I can reword it for you, let me know.
Yeah, because you're gonna edit this a lot, I assume.
Oh yeah, we're really just looking for sound bites, clips, deals like that.
This is not like live streamed onto the Discord.
So low pressure situation. We'll only use the best take stuff here.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. Let me go ahead and pull up my notes. We'll just start from the top. So the genesis of Bitrograde and the founder's journey is our chapter 1 here. We've got 4 questions. To start, could you tell us a bit about your personal journey into game development? Was founding Bitrograde a lifelong dream or a passion that grew over time?
Yeah. So I started work in my interest in video games and making my own video games started in the 80s.
Okay.
I had a Commodore 64 and I was very young. And back in those days, you could get a magazine subscription to I think it was called Compute Gazette, I believe was the magazine.
Okay.
And half the magazine, the first half was tech news and interviews and regular magazine, but the last half was just all code. And it was type all this code in and you'll get this game or whatever. And they'd have just pages of, sometimes it was basic code and sometimes it was assembly language, I believe. And to use the assembly language, you first had to write a compiler in BASIC that they also supplied on a page. So you would have to type all this stuff in just to then be able to type in the assembly language code.
And so a video game you were playing as a kid?
This was a magazine, a print magazine subscription my parents had.
Okay.
And so the last half, it literally was just pages and pages of computer code. And it would be 4 different video games. So it was here, if you type in these 4 pages, you'll get this video game out of it.
What? They had the code to games in the
magazine itself. And we didn't grow up with a lot of money. And something my dad would do as a gift, he would usually, this is not true anymore, but back in the day when, Commodore 64 had 64K of memory, not even 1 megabyte of memory, right? So RAM's super limited in those days. And so in those days, if you had a game that was this is going to sound nuts, but a game that was 8 pages long was typically better than one that was 4 pages of code long. Just because not always true, not universally true, but often it would be the graphics are better, the game engine, just there's more stuff to it because you're so limited on memory. And so if they had all that stuff, it was probably there for a reason. And so you would go, this is going to take me a week to type in, but it should be worth it because it's 10 pages long and it's going to be an awesome game.
You're manually typing that across.
You were typing on a Commodore. No, this is 88, man.
That's
incredible. So something that we grew up, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, and something my dad would do as a gift for a birthday present for my sister and I is he would sit there for days and type in these video games, and on our birthday, here's the disc of the game that I spent days manually typing in for you. That's way better than a gift you could buy.
Oh, that's
know what I'm saying?
That's love.
Yeah. And so we would get these video games. And so from that experience, I kind of immediately knew that if you write this language into a computer, it will do stuff, right? I always knew that was a thing. And so I learned Commodore Basic was the language I learned at 9 or 10 years old.
Okay.
And so I was making, essentially they were the books Choose Your Own Adventure,
oh yeah.
If you want to do this, turn to page 56. If you want to do this, turn to page 103 or whatever. I was basically making Choose Your Own Adventure type games at 8 or 9 years old in Commodore Basic. And I did actually store them on cassette because we didn't have a floppy drive. That I had a cassette drive that you could record. It was 4 computers and you could record your program on it. So it would be you'd have to zero it out. You'd go to 0 on the program and I'd have 4 different programs on tape. So 0 to 56 on the little counter was this game. 70 to like 300. I'm just making up a number. I don't remember the
Sure,
specifics,
sure.
but it would be like, so you would like you would rewind the cassette, zero out your thing, and then you'd have to fast forward to like 80 and then type in your command and hit play and wait for the tape to play. I mean, you wouldn't hear anything, but it's reading the code that's on that tape, loading it into the computer's memory so they could use it. Like, that was my first experience with development at all, was storage on cassette tapes on Commodore 64. And eventually we got 3.5-inch bigger floppy drive. So I wrote a lot of I think I wrote a lot of Star Trek. I think Star Trek Next Generation was kind of becoming a thing, and I was writing choose your own adventure fan fiction Star Trek games at BASIC that were really terrible. Like, these were not good games. They were like a kid's brain. They were not well developed. But that's the interest I had in gaming. And I always wanted to have my own.
So we're talking.
Yeah.
When you were 9 years old, you're saying.
And I specifically remember EA becoming a thing. Like, Electronic Arts didn't exist really. And I remember Rocket Ranger was the first EA game I owned in like 93. And they were like the shit. Like, EA was the coolest company on the planet.
That is the weirdest thing to hear.
Isn't that so weird? And
hearing praise for EA
I
from an
know.
actual gamer is probably the wildest thing I've heard in a long time.
Sega tried to screw over the industry, and EA fought against Sega to make it fair for developers on the console space, and they kind of changed the world. That's why if you look at EA games in the Sega era, they have the yellow tab just as a marketing thing to say, like, we're doing this different than other Sega developers. Like, EA was the hero back and now they're like the evil empire, of course, like, right? Like, now they suck. But like, coming up in the 80s and 90s, I remember sitting there just dreaming at like 11 years old, like, one day I'm going to work for Electronic Arts. What a cool company. Like, that was like my goal. And
goal initially wasn't even to start something; it was just to be at something that was
to be in the industry. Yeah.
And somebody that's doing the right thing and done differently.
Yeah. Well, and you got to realize the other thing Electronic Arts did that nobody did. It was like, for the most part, nobody cared who the game developer was. Like, you had Atari, you had like ColecoVision, you had these old school consoles, and it was like, someone made Pitfall for Atari, and who cares who that was, right? EA was like, we're going to treat our developers like rock stars. So when you open the game, like the box, a lot of times the manual would have like a picture of the developers, and like, so and so did this. Like, EA like treated them like they were a cool company back in the day, like really cool. And now it's just private equity, and let's squeeze our user base for every dime, and just now they're the leaders of the shitification of the gaming industry, I guess. We'll put it that way.
Microtransactions,
the whole
pay credits. Who knows?
Yeah, like my generation, the concept of pay to play, other than arcade coins in the cabinet to keep going, is just insane. It's just like, I bought the game; it should be done now. You know what I mean?
Why is subscribe to this game? And I think that's something that drives a lot of gamers crazy. Would you say that with Bitrograde here, are you kind of taking the approach that Electronic Arts has in the 80s, 90s, or way back when you looked up to them? They way back facetiously as I'm poking a little bit of fun here, but
poke some fun.
So I mean, I guess let's jump back to so that's part of our personal journey, and then we get into wanting to like one day work at EA. Would you say that passion, how did that passion continue to grow over time since then?
Well, it was really weird. So even as a kid, I ran a print terrible, like, it's gonna sound way better than it was. So let me say it, and then I tell you why it was terrible. But like a few years after that, I ran a print magazine that I made about video gaming, right? And I used Commodore Geos as the page layout software, and I would and it would be like, I'd write a couple terrible reviews, I'm sure with horrible grammar, you know what I mean? And I think I remember, like, Rocket Ranger, that EA game, I remember copying the description off the box, like looking at the box and typing it in as like, this is gonna be featured in the magazine of like, this game is awesome or whatever. And I just printed it, and it was like 5 or 6 pages, and I would fold it and like staple it. And I think I had like 15 subscribers, and I would like hand deliver in my neighborhood this like this gaming rag that was just horrible, like in like 5th grade, It was just free.
I
Just
I'm learning new things today. I've heard a lot of your story in previous conversation, but you
yeah,
had
I haven't told you some of this, but that was
models when you were how old?
yeah, I was like yeah that I was all elementary school, and so that was through sixth
Oh,
grade, like elementary school. So it's I this is so many years ago, I don't remember exactly, but it had to be fifth, sixth grade around that neighborhood. So I did that, uh, and then I just grew up around computers and writing code and all that, and that was just a natural language for me. So I got into IT and all that. And the next, I worked for a company uh, that had a retail base, and they also wanted to get into gaming. So I was like kind of assessing their like getting. So everywhere I've worked, I've kind of tried to help them get into gaming a little bit, and I just ended up with a career in the arts and technology and stuff like that. So
sure. I know you have quite a bit of audio mastery. Yeah, just to put it in layman's term, you have an incredible background in music and and audio production as a whole. I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe just a bit of the backstory on that and how that's.
yeah, well, so like a lot of things in my life, I just grew up without any resources. Like I was rich in family, but not rich in finance, right? And so, um, I grew up very religious, and so, um, I was part of like the church youth group and all that sort of stuff. And so when this was probably like my freshman year, so I was like really into computers. A ton of people that I kind of grew up around were already asking me for computer help.
Okay.
And
You were the local guru already.
I was kind of the local guru, but like especially at that age, you definitely think you know more than you actually do.
Oh, for sure.
Pre career, you're like you think you're the shit, and you're
Before
really
you
not.
get a little further along that college graph, right, and the
And then you're like,
that's
oh, I know nothing at all. Never mind. But I was also I had loved music my whole life. Like if I was riding my bike, which I wanted to do, I wanted to be a pro BMXer for a while, and so I rode my bike 8 hours a day. This is again in elementary school, and my headphones were on 8 hours a day. If I'm on my bike, I'm listening to music. It was everything to me. And the youth pastor had become friends with the owner of like they're a local music store, but they're like one of the bigger ones in Nebraska. They're in Kearney there. And the owner of the company, who is a lifelong friend of mine now, but at the time, I was just getting to know him, was just buying the business from the founder of it. The founder was Yonda's Music. So the founder was Clark Yonda. My friend Sean was buying it at the time. So this is the 90s that he was buying the business. And I asked him, what does that mean that you're buying the business right now? And he goes, it just means I'm in a lot of debt and I haven't finished the deal yet. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. But he was starting something new, a new program that he wanted to just test. And the program was, I'm going to give someone free music lessons. I want to give a group of people, like whatever it is, free music lessons, and just hopes that turns into a customer for me, that they end up buying whatever products from me as the music store. She's like, I just want to try it. I just want to see, we're trying new stuff. I'm owning this business for the first time. And so my friend, who was the youth minister, had been taking guitar lessons from the owner of the music business. And he went, do you know anyone that might be really into music, but doesn't play anything, but would like to play music? He goes, I know a kid that's really into music. Let me just talk to him. And the praise band in my church needed a bass player. Like they did not have a bass player. And so he kind of approached me and was like, do you want to learn bass for free? And also, if you say yes, you are in a band immediately. And I was like, what? So I'm like, okay. I was like, you know what? I absolutely love music and rock and roll and hip hop. I love it all. I guess I have to do this. I have to explore. And I remember almost blowing it off. I remember like we were going to meet at the music store at this time, and you're going to get a bass in your hands, and you're going to be playing a song that this band plays. I've never touching a bass ever in my life. Although I had wanted to, like I had went to stores and wanted to play, but like we didn't have the money for any of this stuff,
Right. So the fascination was there. The resources just were not.
Yeah. I in fact, when I was a kid, another music store in Kearney that's not there anymore. I would, this is again like fifth, sixth grade. I'd walk up to the basses that were hanging on the wall, and I'd press like my face up against it, and I just hit the strings, and that low vibration, I just loved it. So I was like loving bass guitar before I even knew what it was as a kid, right?
Okay.
So anyway, so that happens, and
Piece there, like what was the draw to that? You just like were drawn to bass from
I don't know. I remember listening to rock and roll and really liking rock and roll music.
Mm.
And then I'd go in and I'd see the like I didn't realize the difference between an electric guitar and a bass guitar. Like I had no idea they were two different things. Right. I was just a kid, right? And so I'd go in the music store, and I remember just trying to make the budget work because my mom's handicapped, so they had medical, but they just didn't have a lot of money.
Mm.
And I remember going, why don't I start on that 4-string guitar? Surely it's cheaper than the 6-string one. And like, and I won't even need an amp. Like, let me just like, I would for years, I was like, please help me play guitar. And not knowing that what I was attracted to was actually the bass guitar, but just, that was my kid brain.
I mean,
I
think it's very logical thought process there. Like,
and so, of course, my parents were like, "No, that's not how any of this works." But so by the time this is like freshman year of high school that this is happening, where they're like, "You can learn to play this instrument for free." I was like, I think I'm kind of into this, even though by the time I was like too cool for school and all that. Not knowing that playing musical instruments in bands in high school makes you way cooler, you know what I mean? But
right.
So I almost blew that off. But anyway, I go to the music store. All the players are there. Here's a bass for the first time. Here's where C is. Here where G is. Here's how you hold it. Here's basics. Now you're going to play a song that you're going to have to play in this band soon.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, okay. Well, so I did that, and then within a couple lessons, it was quite clear that was what I wanted. Like that was
there was a click kind of.
I just loved it. I loved playing bass. I loved playing music, and it's all I wanted to think about and do. So I spent most of high school playing in bands and starting bands, going on tours. Like I did my first real tour, like multi-state tour at 16 years old, and we put it all together, So I was in that world. And then weirdly, since I had the computer background, I never stopped with that. This is going to sound insane to someone your age, but like we were the only band in like the area that had a website and a CD out. Like these were cutting edge technologies, and they were like, "You have a website?" Like people, and it was not a .com. It was like a long name.
Okay.
But we had our own website with like a guest book that you could sign on the website, which was a thing in the 90s. You could
groups nationally that had a site.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're at what level of start?
Oh, we were nobodies.
Yeah, what level of stuff were other groups hitting before they had a website or had a CD published?
Yeah, if there was a group in the top 40 in the 90s on the radio and they didn't have a website, it wouldn't be that unusual. Like that was not crazy. And you got to realize social media didn't exist.
Sure.
So like no joke, the 90s backwards, the best way to connect with a band was to get on their mailing list and wait for stuff to show up in the mail.
That's
like that was the best way. And so like you could actually listen to clips from our songs on our website, not even a full song. You could listen to clips of our songs, and that was like no one did that yet. Like we were so far ahead.
So that was obviously well before the streaming era.
That was before
form of stream. Like check out our samples. You were doing something that I know musicians to be doing now, where they release little snippets on social media. Mm-hmm. You didn't have either of those resources and still made it happen as
the reason you could only listen to clips is because there wasn't enough storage space on the web servers for larger, and like the MP3 algorithm hadn't been invented yet, so they hadn't really learned how to shrink like the audio files at any meaning. So it was like basically uncompressed wave. PCM, that you'd have to put out there.
File format, or was it a file format? Like how does?
Yeah, it was essentially a WAV file. So like an MP3 file is already way smaller, but that hadn't been invented yet. So there was no MP3 that didn't exist, no iTunes store that didn't exist, right? Like
this wasn't an option to compress anything.
No, and so check this out. So we wanted to put out a CD, and we made it ourselves on our own equipment. And this is why I got into audio engineering, is because we didn't have any money and we wanted to make an album. And so I spent a year learning how mics work, preamps, EQ, how to mix, the whole shebang. And I was terrible at it, but I had some idea. And I borrowed a little 4-track from my buddy Josh, who I play in a band with now, the drummer in Flux Radio. I would steal gear from him all the time in the 90s. And we put a whole record together on 4-track. We mixed it, and we found how did we do it? We found, like, again, CD burners are brand new technology. So nobody had CD burners in their computers. So we actually had to, I'm trying to remember, we found someone that could burn our CD. And I think we duplicated like 80 CDs or something like that. And then we found another guy in town that had a laser printer, which was brand new technology. So we bribed another guy to print off our covers. So we were like hand assembling this. And then the drummer's dad, his parents owned a art store in the Kearney Mall, and so we would like break in we'd sneak in the back of his parents' store and use their shrink wrap machine that they had to shrink wrap all our CDs individually. So we like very DIY'd the whole thing, and that's what got me into production, because I was like, we don't have any money and we're gonna do this,
and effectively made it happen. Did you sell it?
And we did it. We sold it. We sold every copy we made of that terrible, horrible CD. It was so bad. It was so bad. I
think that's incredible. I think that's a big testament to the problem-solving brain that is Chris. Like,
like we're getting it done one way or the other.
Wow.
So, and then, of course, I went on to study at Berkeley, and I got my master's in music production. I was a tech advisor at Sweetwater. So I went and worked in the music business, and then I worked on a million records, both mixing and producing and everything. So I certainly would hope I'm a better engineer than the 16-year-old me on a 4-track. But there's, again, the more you get in any career, the more humbled you are. And you're like, man, the more I know, the less I know. You know what I mean? Type of thing.
Stronger, especially getting to work with you on a couple projects. Eye-opening things to the audio world that I just could not believe. Would you say, so kind of like founding Bitrograde there is related to the problem solving, in that you were kind of over the problems in the gaming industry now and wanted to solve that?
Sort of. Do you want the whole story of Bitrograde or the quick story? Okay. So like, after I kind of got in the music business, I then just had a dual career. I was either working in the music business as a tech advisor, or I was just doing hard IT as a tech advisor. Right. So, I've always worked with technology. And I've just loved video games my whole life. And so, every console comes out, I basically pick up. So I've kept that alive through all that career. And this is a very weird origin story for Bitrograde. But in the back of my head, since I was like 8 years old, I was like, I want to have a game studio that does interesting games. That's what I've always thought would be cool to have. But like, it's one thing to think that in your mind. It's another thing to, like, how do you even do that, right? And so as life progressed, I ended up starting an IT company. That IT business was going very well. Initially, we bought, within the first year of me starting this IT company, we kind of with dumb luck stumbled into this product that was software for running warehouses for produce distribution. Like, this is super not interesting stuff. The company that owned the product was going to just shut it down because they didn't want to update the code anymore or anything like that.
Gotcha.
And we knew one of the users, and so they hit us up and we're like, we're really screwed. We run our whole business on this. They're going away in like a week.
Ooh.
Can you help us in any way? And we're like, how do you answer that? So we kind of reached out to the company and was like, we know this person, and what do you think? And they're like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. We're done. We're shutting this down. And I'm like, we'll buy it from you. And they're like, really? And so we worked out. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you the amount because it's such a low amount.
Okay.
But we bought it, and they got the servers to Omaha because they had an employee in Omaha. And so I drove to his house, physically got their servers, set them up here.
Were you
got the platform
time for this?
What?
Were you in Lincoln at this time?
Yeah, I'm in Lincoln at this time. Yeah, and Mastiff is running. Mastiff Systems is running. This is a massive systems project, the IT company I run.
Understood.
And so we get them, and we effectively doubled the price for every customer because it was like, this is actually going to be expensive to run. But to be honest, they were thrilled because they're like, oh, we're not screwed. Our business doesn't go away, right? So they're like, we were more than happy to pay whatever you want.
Did you see any churn there, or was it pretty much 100%?
No, zero churn, 100% of the customers. And not a lot of customers, in fairness. This was not a big fancy business acquisition. That was very small, but for a few people, it made all the difference in the world to them, right? And I think I'm a big believer in like if I sell you a product, I want to support it to the end of the internet. Like it's the 37 Signals guys. Like we're not going to abandon, especially if you're trusting us to run your business.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to abandon you, right? And so the idea was with that acquisition that I at the time had a business partner who I've long bought out, but he was going to rebuild all the code, redo the platform, and then we're going to go sell it to new people. We're going to make it great for the existing customers, then we're going to go sell it to new people and grow this product. This was awesome. We thought this is a great deal. We got it for a song. This is going to be great. But he got into it and was like, I know why they abandoned this piece of junk. Like this code is terrible.
Oh.
We basically are just starting over, right? And maybe in the AI age, this would have been a different conversation, but this is like a decade ago now.
Sure.
So we basically let the customers know that like, we're going to do bug fixes. We're going to keep this up and running, but like, we are not going to grow this platform. And so I advised all of them, like, start doing work to get off this platform. Like, we're not going to pull the rug out from under you like the other company did, but this is not a viable platform to run your business on. So get out from under it. So anyway, then I just went on to run the company. I didn't really think about that product anymore because everything was kind of on autopilot. Like it was what it was. They paid their bills automatically. If for some reason the servers went down, I'd get help desk tickets and we have to fix it, right? So it was like very in the back burner. And then, I hired Lai, who was the administrative assistant for Mastiff, and we were working on some stuff. And I was kind of deciding, after buying my business partner out, who was really the one that could run software development on this product, like, what am I going to do with this thing that sucks? You know what I mean? And so I was like, you know what? I actually have a lot of faith in my ex-business partner. I think he's a very good developer. So this is not a skin off his nose at all, but I was like, I want to have someone else just take a look at it. I want another opinion if it's that piece of junk, And so I was kind of just talking to Lai about it. Like, do you know anyone that would be interested in this crazy development project? I will pay them a salary for 1 month. They'll see how far they can get on it. If they don't get anywhere, we'll just call it a wash. No big deal.
Right.
But if they get somewhere, we'll talk about developing this into a business. And she was like, I went to college with someone, and that John is who she recommended, who's on the Bitrograde team now. And so I hired John for 1 month to rebuild the produce warehouse management software, or to at least to see if it was possible, right? Like I understand you're not going to rebuild in a month, but like dig in. And he got like 2 weeks into it, and it was very clear to me, like, this is not going to be successful. Like this project's going to fail, and like probably not his fault. Like it is just rough code, and he's doing his best. And I thought about it a little more, and I was like, I'm not that passionate about produce warehouse management. You know what I mean? And I kind of stumbled into owning that business in the first place. So I was like, John, I have an idea. So I went to John. I go, I just have this idea. How about I pay you another month? You stop what you're doing right now. You have 2 weeks left, but you stop what you're doing. I will pay you another month's salary. So you have 6 weeks. I want to start a game studio. I've always wanted to do that as a kid. I want to build a terrible demo, like the crappiest game demo ever, but it's got to shoot, it's got to move, it's got to do like X number of things, but it can be terrible. Graphics can be terrible. It can crash. Like, I don't care, but we just got to make all those things work. And if you can do that in 6 weeks, we're going to start a game studio together. And John said, I have no idea if I can do that or not. Let's give it a go. And I was like, I'm open source. Let's use Godot. Like it was not like I had been in my mind working this out for many years. So when we executed, like we could move pretty quickly because I kind of knew how I wanted it to run. And so I was like, you got 6 weeks. And sure enough, I mean, he came up with like it is a piece of junk, terrible looking game demo, but it all worked. Like you could move through the levels. You had real deaths, you had lives, you had enemies with guns, and it all worked-ish. Enough. I mean, it was enough proof of concept that it was like, we can do this. Like, I think we can do this. And, the name Bitrograde, that was all later. But that was the start of the game studio, and it was just John for like a long time,
Was a one-off, 1 month by fire project. Halfway through, realized it's going to go up in flames. Let's pivot. And I've always wanted to do this thing, and I've already got you for the rest of the month. Why don't you try this? And just see
it worked. And that that was the start of Bitrograde. Very passion project, very scrappy. We don't know what we're doing, but we're gonna figure it out. And I think you can see John's grown tremendously.
Oh yeah,
I think that was about 2 years ago that happened.
Gosh, wow.
So
personal testimony for John is an absolute absolute killer of a developer.
Oh yeah.
Just
Oh yeah.
all around good guy. So he's awesome to get to work around. So let's see. Smart initial. So we've kind of talked about the initial idea, the pivot. Maybe we talk about the pivot or realization that you're gonna start the game studio. So was that like when John had done that demo that worked? Was that kind of the moment for you? Was that the realization?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we said, and obviously, like, I want to create a real business with, a company that we can continue to make great games, but obviously you got to get your first one out the door. So it was like, how do we, what's the first game we're going to make? Like, then we kind of started that discussion,
I love that. I'm going to say the name Bitrograde, pretty distinctive. What's the story behind it? What does it signify for the studio's philosophy and approach?
I don't know if it signifies that much. So I think you were part of that discussion, but over the years, the team grew. I think we were just calling it Mastiff Gaming for a while as the studio, just because we didn't have a better name. But there's a Mastiff Gaming game publisher that is like massive. Like we could never use it, and it's probably not the greatest name anyway. So we were like, what are we going to name this studio as we were building it? And I think it was just John. This time we had like several designers. We had you on sound. We had a whole team working on stuff, but we didn't really have a name. And John he's who came up with Bitrograde. And it's just, we talked a lot about the philosophy because I come from that old school world where EA was good in the upside down, right? And
that's great.
And so I think about like as a gamer who's seen, I saw it's a very weird journey when you've been with gaming the whole time, because back in the 80s, gaming wasn't even just for boys, right? It was like equally for men and women. And then it was really like, I think it was really the Nintendo Entertainment System where they're like, where is this going to go in the toy aisle? And the decision was made, we're going to market to men. We're going to market to boys. That was actually a conscious decision. And like women were just as interested in video games, like in the 70s. Like look at Atari. That was marketed to men and women equally.
Oh, my mom
in the 70s
about playing Atari growing.
Yeah. It was very normal, and so it was really Super Mario. It was really, unfortunately, Nintendo, who I love, but it was Nintendo that really made that like it's kind of a boys' club to be a gamer, right? Yeah. It was kind of those, and you could look up. There's some documentaries on it that were pretty fascinating. But then it started to drive me nuts, like. Especially I had young kids, and as DLC became normal, and then like, oh, I'm going to put in this disc in my console, and it's going to be like 2 hours before I can play it because it has to move to the hard drive, and then I have to do an online update. And it was like, dude, I got 2 hours to play this game. I don't have 2 hours to install it. So half the time you're just not even a gamer, right?
Right. You turn back to a tech guy at that point.
Right. And so it was quite frustrating. But I actually early had an Xbox Live account, so that was kind of fun. But like a lot of the Bitrograde philosophy comes from like my own frustrations. And then I actually got into Google's Stadia platform, which like gamers hated that platform, but it wasn't like, I didn't get why they hated it. Like it was, I hate Google as a company, so I get it from that aspect. But like the technology was insane in Stadia. Like instantly play any game you want on any device. Like, hello. It was incredible. And so that solved all these problems that games had, but then that was just not a profitable product.
When did you see that start? Because I feel like I remember on the old original Xbox, I could throw in a game and it was just, you're playing the game.
It was probably, the first Xbox was pretty good about that.
Right.
Because Xbox, well, this is going to blow your mind. I'm going to blow your mind on some things. So Xbox Live was a revolutionary product.
Okay.
Changed gaming forever, right? And so I'm going to tell you the features it added, and you're going to laugh at them because you're like, that is standard. But that was brand new when the Xbox Live launched. So first of all, it was brand new that if someone was playing another game, you could see what game they were playing and talk to them. That was like unheard of technology.
When you say talk to them.
Like, so Xbox, like you could say, oh, my friend's playing.
Or you could talk to them, like verbally.
Talk to them verbally as well. Yeah. And Xbox Live was the first platform. Like all these technologies existed, but not all together in one package.
Right.
And Microsoft really crushed it with Xbox Live. So it was like it required, if the game was on Xbox Live, you had to be able to see the friends list across all games. So like if I'm playing Halo and they're playing Splinter Cell, for example, was a game I played all the time. Splinter Cell, I could go, oh, you're playing Splinter Cell, come join our Halo match. And like
Nice.
that was brand new technology, which is super normal now, like that.
Before that, it was just hope your buddy would or just nothing. You just played a game solo, or was
it the phone and be like, get on Halo. Okay. You know what I mean?
So there was multiplayer before, and you could join that, but you would have no idea to know that your friends were online or anything prior to live.
Before Xbox Live. And like you got to realize, like Halo 1 had some online components, but they didn't really make it work right until the second Halo game. Okay. And that's when Xbox Live, I feel like, really came into its own. Like they really worked that out well. And I was playing a lot of Rainbow Six. I was on a Rainbow Six competitive league, and I was playing Splinter Cell, Pandora Tomorrow, and then of course like Halo 2. But the other thing Xbox Live did, they required voice chat to work. That wasn't a requirement before. So sometimes games like, oh, I can't use a mic in this game, I'll just type on the keyboard to someone.
Right.
That like you needing to use voice was a new feature that wasn't like that was a technology that didn't really.
How do you feel about needing to use a tech? The forcing hand of you have to have a mic.
Well, I thought in that context it was correct. I thought in that context saying we want to create the next generation of online gaming experiences. Mm-hmm. So we're going to require voice. We're going to require unified friends list. We're going to require these things. Nice. And then now you can see our vision of the future and how it can work. And then Sony, every company copied them after that.
Are they requiring the game studios, or are they requiring
so if the game so at the time, and I'm not familiar with the developer requirements now, but at the time for the original Xbox, the big brick, if you wanted to have an online component, you had to use Xbox Live. Like you could not. And again, that was weird too, because back in the day, it was like Wild Wild West. Like on PC, every game managed their own online systems, right?
And then I remember Skype being pretty popular before.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, before Microsoft bought it. There was a technology called Roger Wilco that was a lot of back end that we would all kind of use, and that just ran behind the game, and that was, I believe, our voice chat.
Okay.
We were hacking this. I at one point I had an iMac. It would have been a G3 or G4 iBook, a white iBook.
Okay.
And someone had built a server software to fake out Halo 1 into thinking it was online. So if I had that on my network, it would connect to other Halo 1 players and bridge it into my and it was like a Mac running a Halo server. It was crazy what you could do back in the day. But yeah, so Xbox Live. Anyway, we're kind of rabbit trail.
There's not as many security features there. Is that like
you had an Xbox Live account that you had to log into, and I still have the same one. Like I still have the same Xbox that I did on the original, and so it wasn't. So all that kind of worked, and it was $100 a year. Xbox Live was $100, and that was also kind of like it used to be. Online services were kind of free, and so gamers were kind of mad about that. They're like, "What do you mean you charge?" But I was at the time like, "Look at what they built, though. Like it is worth $100 a year." And to be able to just get on and talk to friends all over and have a friends list on your console, like these were new things that are just, that's how it works now, right? Like, so it wasn't until the 360 that I think that's when the transition started. Like they have a ton of games that you can just drop in the 360, but that's when it started to go, whoa, there's going to be updates. There's going to be
or the disc,
DLC.
It's a download file.
Yeah, that was I feel like it was the 360. Maybe what is that? The PlayStation 3 era. Maybe it's kind of when that really started.
Right to me. I just sometimes remember if I am misremembering as a youth, but we had some really great classic Xbox original games, and I always remember just being able to like throw that in the box and just start playing. And I miss that. I feel like that's a little bit of the arcade style of like delivering a finished product. Well, and that's the other thing that like we think about in Bitrograde. So it was like me coming from that perspective was like, what sucks about gaming now? And it's like games aren't done. You know, there's DLC, and I just hate the idea of like, and it's the same way when I run the IT company. Is like I really like the idea of like our customers are collaborators. Like we want to create a great experience for you, and then we want to talk to you about it. You know what I mean? Where EA, Ubisoft. I mean, there's certainly people in those companies that love games, but their corporate structure is like, how do we suck as much money out of gamers? We don't really care. You know what I mean? And I felt like if I'm going to do a game studio that I'm
that's a passion project, and obviously it has to be a profitable business at some point. But if I'm going to do a game studio that's a passion project, I want to not do that to gamers. I want to treat gamers amazing. I want to be like, you deserve better than to get an unfinished game. You know what I mean? You deserve better than to like, oh, you've bought our game. Oh, but if you want these extra levels, we're going to charge you another $50.
Right.
And it's like, no, if you want to do that, just make a damn sequel and charge a regular price. You know what I mean?
Or
give them a good game at a good value.
Unlock that hidden level by playing the game, and then it feels like bonus content but it's truly part of the game baked in.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's pivot here. So the open source philosophy.
Yeah.
A significant factor here. You seem to have a very big and deep commitment to open source tools. We've talked a bit about that, but could you elaborate why, the development process is so headstrong on using open source tools? Would you say it's similar to your experience with the company that was basically rug pulling their customers for their produce marketing management?
Well, no. So I've been into Linux almost since it came out. My first career tech job I got in '99 at a tech company. And
do you remember?
You got to what?
Do you remember what month in '99?
Between March and August, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in there, because it was summertime, and I'm trying to think because I remember how old I was, and my birthday's in April, so I just like after that.
You're being painted is all.
Yeah.
That's super important.
So I forgot where I was going with that.
Open source tools, talking about.
Oh yeah. So you got to realize, like, the .com bubble was real weird, and like you grew up with the internet, but like I grew up, the internet didn't exist. Like I remember the internet, like. Let me tell you how crazy it was. Okay. So like back in the day, you had like bulletin boards, you had like CompuServe was a company that you could dial your computer into, and they had some stuff. They had like, you could get an email address. They had bulletin boards. You could talk to other people on CompuServe, right? AOL was a company like that. They did not have the internet. They had their own internal chat rooms. They had their own world. You dialed a phone number and you were hooking to AOL's server.
Gotcha.
This is not the internet. This is their server, okay?
Gotcha.
That was the normal thing for like 10, 15 years, right? So like, I remember CompuServe was a big one. And so there was all these individual services but there was not, like the internet is everyone can talk. These were like, if you can only talk to people on CompuServe that is dialed into the same phone number, right?
Could you make an analogy for me here? Like you could only have a meeting with the HOA if you're part of the HOA. It's not like everybody has access to.
Well, just like, let's just say it'd be more like this. Let's say if you want to go to Walmart.com, you had to dial into Walmart servers.
Okay.
And then you could only use what Walmart offered to you.
Understood. Okay.
And it was not a universal protocol, right? And so like, just because you can talk to someone else at Walmart.com doesn't mean you can talk to someone at Target.com, for example.
Because,
right?
Gotcha.
Because they're siloed. So it was not the internet. It was not a universal protocol. It was not. And when the internet came out and started to become like, this is a thing we should have at our house, like my mom was like, I'm not doing that. And like, it took a year for us to explain to her that it is not like CompuServe where we're dialing into a phone number. This is a universal tool that if someone in Florida is on the internet and you're on the internet, you are on the same thing. And like, that was a very new concept for my mom. She was like, and until she understood that, she was not going to pay for the internet because like, why would I just dial into a bulletin board or, so I don't know. So
explain the purpose.
Yeah. And so like, you got to realize that going through like the internet at its kind of, I mean, it started in the 60s, right? But it really blew up in the 90s where it became kind of household important. And going through that bubble where it was like, oh, you're getting $1 million for an idea on a napkin. You know what I mean? Like seeing big money. And like, I worked in tech at a web design company and an ISP, right? And so to see it at that level and go through that bubble was really interesting. And that's where I kind of got into like the Linux movement because a lot of web servers are running on Linux. And I really liked the idea of not like of being in control of your own technology, right? I came from Commodore 64. I came from Amiga. Like we would build our own programs to do stuff. And to get into like Windows, which on one hand was pretty interesting, right? Because like, in fact, I'm going to back up a second.
Yeah.
So let me tell you about, so you realize Commodore 64, you've probably never seen one, but when you turned it on, you got a cursor and it said like you typed in what you wanted to do. There was no mouse. There was no interface. You started typing code. To use any computer of that era, you had to know something about it.
Cursor, and you had to like
you get a flashing cursor.
Write command.
Yep.
Like run.
Yeah, and so I would to load a floppy disk. I would first of all I would say load. Maybe I can remember the man. Load quote star quote something and then comma 8 comma 1, and the star was what the star would do was a wildcard, and it would give me a directory of what's on the disk.
Okay.
So I could, and then the 8 specified what disk drive it was.
Okay.
So it was like that's the location, because 9 meant the different disk drive if you had 2 of them. So 8 comma 1 meant something, 9 comma 1 meant something, and you had to know which disk drive you wanted it to. And for the most part, you only had 1, so it was always 8. But so I would type load star this command, and then here's the directory on the disk. Okay, I want that program. Load this program from this disk drive, and then it would load the program before you're even using the computer, right? And there was no point in having a mouse. There was no window. There was no interface. And there was a program called Geos that that's what I made that little magazine in. And that was the first windowed style. Windows is a generic term for user interface that Microsoft just stole basically.
Right.
but it was like, do you have a command line, like a terminal, like a DOS? People would think of DOS terminal.
Code strip, or are you looking at a visual?
At a window, right? And so it was actually Xerox who kind of pioneered that interface style, and both Microsoft and Apple realized that they had no clue what they had invented, and both of them were like, we got this, and kind of raced to market with a user interface style. You got to break this down, I think, even a step further. Yeah.
Commodore was its own thing, or you plugged it into a computer, or
how? No, a Commodore 64 was a computer. It was like, I have one. Yeah, it's on another floor. It's like this. It's like this big. It's like this big. It's like this tall. The keyboard's built in, and it's the total computer.
Okay.
To this day, it is the best-selling computer of all time. To this day, and part of it is like, every year Apple puts out a new Mac, right? So if Apple didn't put out a new model of Mac for 5 years, they'd probably have the best-selling. Like there was one Commodore 64, right, for like ever, and then they
before then
they did
competitor showed up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Back in the day, computers didn't iterate as quickly. Like
right,
it was not unusual for them to sell the same computer for 5 years straight in the 80s.
Well,
that was not.
Advancements just weren't worth the squeeze. Like what could have been developed far enough, long enough to have something functional. I get that.
Well, you got to realize, like, so the sequel to the Commodore 64 was the Commodore 128, which doubled the amount of memory in the Commodore to 128K. Still not even 1 megabyte, which it takes. I mean, Windows 11 minimum requirements to even breathe is 4 gigabytes, and that's a joke. It could barely run with 4 gig, and so we're not even at 1 megabyte. We're talking about computers,
Right.
So, and Bill Gates has kind of famously said, like, nobody needs more than 16K of RAM in a computer. But I think that was kind of a misquote. Well, here's what's funny, if you want to just like talk about this. So Xerox kind of invented the mouse. They kind of invented these things. I mean, obviously multiple people in multiple industries are working on stuff, but it's really Xerox who kind of put it together. And Steve Jobs wanted to build a mouse for the Macintosh, the Apple IIgs, I believe, also. And he brought in the Xerox mouse, and his on-site design team was like, and he's like, this has to cost under $100. And they were like, what you want is impossible. You're a psychopath, Steve, which is a very common thing
that he was probably told.
For him. He was probably told a lot in his life, and his engineers just wouldn't do it. And he went to an outside design company and said, this is what I want you to build. And they were kind of stumped too, but since they were outside, they were like, we're going to figure this out for Jobs.
Right.
And the one guy had been working on it for days, just could not figure out a mechanism to make the mouse work. We're talking about the first home mouse, right?
Okay.
Ever is what they're trying to build. So like the average person does not know what a mouse is at this time in history. Okay. And so this is so crazy how he invented this. So he got, the story goes that the engineer that was working on the mouse was just like brain fried or whatever, just couldn't work on the problem anymore, and like went to the grocery store and was shopping for groceries, and he looked at the deodorant aisle and saw the roll-on deodorant and went, that is the answer. And then we got the mouse ball because of roll-on deodorant. Wow. And Steve Jobs. Yep. Look it up. Fact check me.
I won't. So, that's way too specific, or you're that good of a storyteller. But
okay. Oh yeah. So using roll-on deodorant with extra wheels, then they could triangulate the XY of the mouse for very cheap. And Jobs was able to get his mouse priced where he wanted, and the rest is kind of history. But I guess I say all that to live through that and to see the origin of computers go from like wild west, we're all big nerds in this new technology, to like Microsoft owns you it's really frustrating to me. And I kind of feel like Linux is the antidote to that. And so I first installed Linux in like 1999 on a computer. So my journey with open source has been like 25 year long now.
And control has benefited across the board.
Yeah. And I think I love the community aspect of it. Like Godot's great. Like, let's say we find something in the Godot engine that we want to improve on, we can do it. And then we can push it back to the community. And we've actually done this with our CRM system in the IT business. Like, we've found things we don't like about it. We've fixed the code ourselves. We've pushed it back up to their repository. They can take it or leave it. But I like being able to contribute back. And I do. And again, it comes down to like, I'm not here to take every dollar from your pocket. I want to make a good profit from the game I'm going to sell you. Mm-hmm. But then I want you to have a great time, a great experience. I don't want to come back and be like, now pay me another $5 and another $1. Like, I don't want to have an engagement person. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no, we're going to make an awesome game that we're going to make the best game we can with who we are today. And we hope people have a good time with it. And that's the relationship, you know?
I love that. Let me because I think we're going a little different direction here.
Let's go. Let's get back on track.
That's how we have our conversations, just so a general. This is normal. This is par for the course. But if we wanted to talk about unpacking the game, like just dive straight in. Drunk Pedestrians versus the Horse Head. That's provocative. It's a memorable title. It's provocative. What's the inspiration behind that? Initial.
You want the long story or the short story?
Give me the medium story.
Yeah, so the Drunk Pedestrians is just a fake band I invented as a joke, like as a gag, like 20 years ago. And it's from Back to the Future 2, where they're in the bad timeline and he runs into the town drunk, the town homeless drunk, and he is intoxicated and he looks at Marty and says, "Crazy drunk pedestrians." And I just thought that was like such a funny juxtaposition, like my whole life. That's a dumb joke, but I just got a kick out of it, right? And so I remember like I'm at like 21, so this is again many years ago, hanging out like a Burger King with a friend of mine, and just being like, I'm gonna make a hip hop record, and my fake group is called Drunk Pedestrians. And like I used to just like randomly beatbox or sing songs, and my friend Clint, who we're still friends with, who made that big painting in my dining room. He goes like, "Dude, you're like the soundtrack to life," and I'm like, "I am the soundtrack." And the second Drunk Pedestrians record called "I Am the Soundtrack" is the name of it, because it's just all inside jokes, right? And so, so I put a couple records out under Drunk Pedestrians. Fast forward a little bit, and I had this weird theory about the internet that was like, for the most part, you make friends with people because of you're around them, right? Like, duh, like you know, and then if they happen to have,
friends by proxy. We see that in
friends by proxy. Yeah, right. Friends by proxy. And so like, then if they have something in common, like a similar interest, then of course you make even better friends.
Right.
But I was like, in the internet age, maybe you could like find who's supposed to be your best friend in the world, and it's not about proxy. Like, so I kind of like did this experiment where I was like, I'm gonna like come up with a bunch of interests and find like on paper someone that's supposed to be like my best friend in the world somewhere else, and I'm just gonna cold email them and just be like, "Do you want to try to be best friends?" And just see if my theory held. It was just, I mean, again, this is many years ago, and I found Dan, the guy who's writing. I reached out to him. He was like featured in some magazine in like Seattle, And he was like a musician and a writer and up and comer. And I think I wrote him an email just cold that said like, we are supposed to be best friends, I think was the subject line. And I was like, I'm not some psycho. I'm not a gay dude hitting on you. I'm not like, you'll never hear from me again if you don't reply. Yeah. But like, here's my theory. Here's what I think. And here's why I think we should be best friends. And I just thought this would be a crazy experiment to try over the internet. But if not, like, keep up the good work, homie. All good.
Right.
And he emails me back like, let's try this. Let's do it. He was like all in. And so sure enough, like my theory worked, right? But like he was telling me about the music he was making, and I was telling him about the next Drunk Pedestrians album I was working on. And he goes, I want to write your origin story of your fake band. I'm like, okay. That sounds cool. And so he wrote this crazy narrative about like almost space, like short story, but space opera-y about, I mean, he made a character called Chris that's not me, but it is like, it made it kind of, which is weird now. But, and then it was so cool that every record I put out, I had him write a story to go along with it. And so we kind of have this long narrative. And then eventually something happened that he was not available to do one. And I think I had another writer work on a record. And so we ended up with this whole accidental narrative about the Drunk Pedestrians, this fake, completely fake group of whatever stupid music I'm making at the time.
Right.
And so if we rewind the conversation, once John was like, we're going to do a game, we started talking about what kind of game we want to make. I had no idea at all what type of game. And so we were going back and forth with different ideas, and it kind of hit me. I have all this IP that is mine, right, that would make a kind of interesting video game. Right. And so like we decided to take the first story that Dan wrote all those years ago and kind of turn it into like a game. And it seems to be a pretty good, like there's a lot of fodder there. Like it's a weird sci-fi, nerdy pop culture reference. Like, I mean, there's Doctor Who and Back to the Future and everything all roll over it, It's
been a good skeleton to just build around without like having to completely start from scratch with a game lore. Like, I like having much to look back on too.
Oh yeah, and the goal is that like essentially there's 3 main plots, and I want to make a game for each one. So we kind of have the narrative, at least the narrative for all, assuming we can get this one off the ground and make a little money off it so we can keep paying people.
Right.
Then we'll, you know what I mean? Then we're going to immediately do the next one and the next one, right?
Right. If I look further, what genre would you say the game falls into? And then core gameplay mechanics.
We're still working some of that out. It was always designed to be like an action adventure game. Initially, like I think my pitch was, it's like Beneath a Steel Sky meets Stardew Valley meets like Zelda or something, I think was my like kind of initial pitch. Because we definitely, I like the lo-fi vibes, but part of it was like, we're a new studio with no resources. We're learning how to do this in the first place, and so let's not make the graphics any more complicated than we need to be. So let's keep them. So like the lo-fi is
object mesh renderings that we're worried about.
Yeah, I knew that because we're essentially using the IT company's money to fund the development studio, and I knew I wouldn't have a ton of that, right? And I was not going to burn money forever, so it's like, you can spend millions, tens of millions. I think GTA, the new GTA game, is like $200 million budget or $300 million. I mean, it's a huge budget.
Rapidly,
right?
300, and like you see the memes of all the things we got before we got GTA 6. So.
Right, exactly. And so it's like, I knew I could really screw up my budget if I went hard on 3D graphics and stuff. And I thought for just the basic type of game I want to make, I don't know that that's necessary, And now I think we've kind of created a lo-fi aesthetic that actually just really works with the game. But yeah, I would say it's a lot of puzzles. It isn't combat driven, even though there is. We haven't fleshed it all out yet, but it's like we're gonna have some combat in it. But it's mainly puzzles, and it's about fun, and it's just about attitude and being ridiculous, and that's kind of the idea of the aesthetic of the game, I guess.
I love that. I have a lot. We don't have to do all of these today.
Yeah, I probably have about 10, 15 more minutes.
Let's wrap one, and we'll do this again then, if that's okay with you, just because I think this is
absolutely
getting a lot of really great stuff out of this. I think we'll get
some. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a really good use of time.
Okay, good.
To be honest, like this is, we have so many clips to pull from this. So give me kind of, I guess we jump to vision and future. What advice would you offer to other aspiring independent game devs, especially those interested in open source tools? Let's skip that question's a little wordy. I don't.
Yeah, and it's not right for us. Like, I'm not one to give advice. I'm still learning what I'm doing.
Yeah, let me skip here.
Yeah, no worries.
So what do you see as the long term? I know you've kind of briefly answered this, but what is the real full long term vision for Bitrograde?
Yeah, like, you know, first of all, I want to stay independent. I don't want to be owned by a bigger company because I want to make the games I want to make, and at the end of the day, I want to treat the gamers, the people that use our products, very well, and I don't want to treat them like, you know, I don't want them to be a number on a spreadsheet that we can. I don't want to have a monetization specialist for Bitrograde. Like, I'll never have a monetization specialist. Like, so that's just a big deal to me that we stay independent. And so obviously we have to come up with, you know, this is the stuff that people don't like talking about with game studios, is you have to have a business model, right? You have to make a profit. You have to have enough money that you can fund develop. Like, making a game takes a long time, and so you have to have enough money to make those gaps, you know, to fund it. And we're lucky that, yeah. And so we don't have unlimited money at all, but we have enough that we can kind of get where we want to go. But then obviously when that happens, we're going to do the next Drunk Pedestrians game. But long term, I want to have a couple teams. Like, I want to do a real-time strategy game. I'm really interested in unique experience. Like, I'm really obsessed with like the Playdate little weird handheld console. I'd love to. That's a tough one to make a business model around, but I would love to work in that space. You know, I'm obsessed with the game, The Stanley Parable. I've been preaching all. I would love to do kind of games that are like outside of the norm,
right?
And kind of do different things. But you got to do games a little more normal first to learn how to do it, right? Like, we've never released a game before. We're brand new. And so we have to go through those processes and learn what we're doing and make mistakes along the way, and we'll fix the mistakes and we'll just keep growing. And I'm hoping by release 3 or 4, like, we really know what we're doing and have it a streamlined process, and we know how to talk, even like, how do we connect with gamers and find like, hey, you're gonna dig this game, like, you know, the marketing, like, you got to figure all that stuff out, you know,
right? And how do we do the marketing piece without supporting like evil, essentially?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and how
all that down.
Yeah, but to me, part of that is respecting gamers as well. Like, you know, I'm not going to get in your face and be like, oh, this is amazing. Like, come check out our little studio. I think you'll like it. You know what I mean? And like, it's not going to be, I don't know. It seems very old school to me. Like, it sounds old school, but it seems so common sense that like, we're going to make the best game we can, the best product we can. We're going to charge a fair price for it. And we're going to use the profits of that game to make the game studio better. Like, that is exactly what we're going to do. And that is like so weird in today's economy. You know what I mean? But like, I want to stay a mom and pop. I want to stay a small company.
It's not
forever.
The race to be acquired. It's not the race to get picked up by.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Nope. If anything, I would hope that we could grow to the point that we could help other small indie studios publish their games better. Like, we want to be a positive force in this community, but we're not anywhere near. You know that, but that's the stuff we talk about. We talk about releasing a lot of the stuff we've written back into the world as open source. Obviously, can't do everything open source for commercial releases, but we're trying to open source or give away as much as free as we can, as because we just want the community involved and see what we're working on, and it's, you know, it's more fun that way.
I love that. That was great for this first session. I'm gonna cut the loom here just because we're at an hour.